Hey, I'm Des Money.
And I'm Jessie Money. And you're watching CMS TV.
How many times have you lied and left me high and dry? With all the tears that I've cried, you left me wondering why. Back up, and it's the road, my friend. How many times have you lied and left me high and dry? With all the tears that I've cried, you left me wondering why.
And we are back right here on Chris Aiken Presents. That was an artist named Brandon Paul. The name of that song was High and Dry. And joining us now on Chris Aiken Presents, the one and only Mr. Brandon Paul. Brandon, how are you, man?
Good. How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Stole my guitar for your video. Oh, it's a green guitar, so it doesn't even work on my green screen.
His works, yours doesn't, Eric.
It's just the cast of the Love Boat on here.
That's right. Well, Brandon, nice to meet you, man. Been enjoying your work online as best I know it. You know, Eric hit me up, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he's like, dude, we got to get this guy on. You know, he's a friend and he plays the same Charvel as I do and blah, 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 blah. But this guy can fucking play. And I was like, okay, sold. I went, I looked up some videos and I was like, yeah, you can really play. You're not just like, you know, all you guitar players think that each other can play. And that's fine. As guitar players, I get that. You appreciate it because that's what you do. I can't play a lick of guitar, which means I'm way more critical of it because I start every argument with, oh, these fucking guys, they could do something I can't do, you know? So I'm more critical. I went out and I watched a bunch of your videos, and not so much your music. Your music is cool, but some of the cover stuff that you do is really difficult to play. Like some of the Van Halen Pound Cake stuff and stuff that I
saw
found
that you were doing Van Halen Pound Cake. You actually had
the
drill and you nailed the whole. You're like, this was at the Ultimate Jam night,
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Eric. I appreciate that. Yeah. I tried to use the drill the best I could. I guess Eddie had one that was specifically in the same key as the song. The one I had was in a totally different key. It actually sounded more like a dental thing, like
Right.
So to my
I
ear,
love
I'm
that
like,
song, and it sounded like you did it to me. To my ears, it worked.
It sounded good.
The hardest thing is just getting it out of the way right in time to nail the first chord.
Right.
You did.
I'd say in the solo too. I practiced really hard you got to grab the drill and then do it on a lick, put it back, and then a couple more bars, and then he did it again during the solo. Right. So in the video, I was trying to get to it, but it was like misplaced. So that's why I was like kind of struggling.
Did you ever see the MTV Video Music Awards where he comes out and he had to pull that off? They like opened the awards with that, and he had to do that. He had to stash it, I think, on the drum riser, maybe.
Yeah, it's so good. That was the video I was watching while I was practicing at home. I'm a little obsessive, so I put a chair down in my house and then another chair with the drill, so I would mimic grabbing it, trying to like practice that. It still didn't really work, but yeah.
Whilst having Eddie's guitar, was that yours, or was that there, or what?
Yeah,
I had 5150 guitar.
I have one of the Frankenstrats. Yeah, the ones that EVH came out with last year.
Nice. Well, I think it's safe to say it just doing anything like that, it reminds you real quick why Eddie Van Halen was the greatest, because my goodness, he did a lot of things that, you know, I think a lot of people, you know, again, a lot of people that don't play guitar just looked at that whole thing with the drill, or they look at like another little gimmicky thing I'll point to, like the beginning of Green Tinted 60s Mind, the Mr. Big song, where Gilbert recorded the whole thing backwards and then re-engineered it Like
Wow.
he played it one way, but then he flipped it so that it came out the right way that you hear it on the album. It's actually playing in reverse. And, you know, y'all are way too smart.
I'm not as smart as Paul Gilbert, that's for sure. But yeah, he's incredible. I love Paul Gilbert.
Nice.
Who got you started playing guitar? Bring us back to what made you interested in playing and how you got your first guitar, and tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it started in high school for me. One of the only friends that I had actually at the time, sophomore year, junior year, he started playing guitar, and he was really into like power metal. So it was more like Gamma Ray, Symphony X,
Halloween,
yeah, a lot of Kai Hansen, a lot of those bands from the European side. That's what kind of got me started. And then some Yngwie, and shortly after Randy Rhoads, the Aussie guitar players. Van Halen actually kind of came a little bit later. I mean, my dad introduced me to Van Halen when I was really young, but I didn't really process it as like a musician. I was just kind of some kid who heard it, but it stuck with me. So yeah, Van Halen came a little bit later. Started with the power metal guys, then it went more progressive metal. I think from there it just kind of weaned into more blues and B.B. King, Clapton, and more of that soulful kind of a stuff. And yeah, I mean that's the start of it.
Is that because of your personal taste, or is that because that's what feels in the groove for you as a player?
I would say both, definitely. Yeah, okay. I like everything. I respect just about all styles of music. I have a pretty open palette when it comes to listening to music. In fact, I don't really even listen to a lot of rock as much because I'm playing it so much. I personally like R&B, soul, I like a lot of Motown. Yeah, these are the artists that I'm mainly into. I just don't really play it much. Everybody sees me playing, rock or shred, but I like everything.
Sure. Now, for you, Brandon, and we haven't really dug into your whole career, but to share a little bit, you spend the bulk of your time, you're a teacher, as well as you play in some really kick-ass cover bands as well. Talk about the decision. I want to start with the cover bands because you're one of these guys, you're certainly on a talent level that there should be you building three guys around you and writing original music. That being said, I certainly understand the economics of today's world where you could slog it out for 5 years and not make it, even if the music's good, just because of that, versus you can go play Pour Some Sugar on Me and you could have 300 people in front of you tomorrow.
And he's gone to some really cool places already. I mean, from what I could see on your Facebook, you've gone on played festivals in other countries, Mexico and
Yep, just last year, with the Icons of Rock band, which is based around these 5 awesome legendary singers. We played in Bolivia a couple dates, Mexico. We played in Panama, and yes, I know the next question. We played Panama in Panama. Don't worry.
Wow.
Yeah, right. And then, next month we're playing in Mexico twice again in 2 different places as well.
It's so awesome there. Where do you know where you're going to be? What cities?
So one of them is Mexico City. We're playing this CDMX arena. I can't remember the name of it. It's a really beautiful arena. And the first one we're going to, I'm spacing. I got to look at the thing. I got a lot of dates next month.
Right.
So I'm kind of
it's such a different vibe there. I mean, I've played the Pepsi Center with Piercy in Mexico City, and it's a trip that, where the people live is kind of like in Star Wars on Tatooine.
Tatooine,
yeah. It's kind of like Tatooine there. Like they're like sand huts,
right?
Like I had to score some weed, and I had to had some guy like take me into the city. I thought I was gonna get kidnapped or something, and they like took me up into this like Tatooine area. Then I gave the guy like $20 American, and he gave me like a pound of Mexican weed, like way more weed than I knew what to do with it. I was like, what the fuck am I going to do with all this? And I kind of brought it back, stashed it, threw it away. Oh man, it was terrible. But anyways, Back to you, Brandon.
That's a good story.
Nice. Well, what I wanted to know, Brandon, is for you, you're a creative guy, obviously. Do you like playing in the cover bands versus doing your own original stuff, or is it a means to an end for you?
Well, I mean, I do enjoy it a lot. For me, it's kind of a three-headed monster. I look at it this way nowadays, where I have the hired gun thing, which right now currently is the Icons of Rock, Lizzie Borden, Jesse Money, who I saw that you had on here.
Right.
I'm playing with. We're doing Arizona Bike Week in a couple weeks.
Love Jesse.
And then I have some tribute stuff, the Pyromania, which is good for some regular work and some really cool shows. Actually, that's I think where I first met Eric was Monsters on the Mountain last year or whatever.
And I saw you the other night when you came to our show, and was it Montclair or?
Yeah, no, that was in Agora.
Agora, okay. And I saw you, and that's when I was like, you know what? I have to have him because you're so nice to all the old timers like me and my predecessors. Like for a young guy, sometimes they don't want to have anything to do with the older guitarists, but you've always been so cool to us.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I respect your playing a lot, and your experience. You've done so much. But yeah, so, I love the hired gun work. I think it's a lot of fun. I remember when I first started playing, truthfully, I just wanted to play. I wanted to be in Ozzy's band. I actually was so set on that. I thought that I was going to end up in his band just because I was naive and, that's all I wanted.
Right.
But so I love the hired gun work. I have a lot of my own music. I have a couple albums out. I have singles out. I'm certainly spending more time on my vocals and lessons and writing. I've just found that it's so hard to make something out of it as an original artist. I mean, it's been really challenging.
Right. Well, and it's the reason it's hard is because we're for lack of a better term, we're stuck in the nostalgia world now. Everybody just wants to hear what they already know. I mean, I say this to Eric all the time with his work. The View to a Thrill and Smash are two great Stephen Pearcy records. And when you go to the gigs, what are people yelling? Round and round. That's what they want to hear. It's unfortunate because I personally think that people are missing out on a lot of great music, and we can kind of lead to this. I think they're also missing out on guys like you putting your focus into new music because it's just not commercially viable, or at a minimum, it's commercially risky. You don't want to lose your place. You don't want to lose your car, for the desire to make that one song that may or may never hit.
Right. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I'm in my early 30s now, and all through my 20s, I only was in original bands. I was in a couple original bands that I just stuck to through the drama, through the no pay, the loss of pay, driving to this state, driving to that state, playing for 10 people. And I mean, it just more and more, I thought, well, I can deliver. So let me go and at least get hired and make a living out of this. And I think just more and more, it's kind of gone a little bit more. In recent years, I've spent more time on my original music, like I said, with vocals and doing the guitar player singer thing. But even so, I mean, it's been just so challenging to get people to pay attention. I've had a couple managers. I've tried as much as I can. There's been some independent deals that have kind of been thrown my way, but a lot of stuff just doesn't seem to make as much sense. And not sure where I'm going with this one, but just know that if in a perfect world, I would be out there just doing my own thing, singing and playing my own music, if I knew that I could at least do better than breaking even. But it seems like that's really hard to even do.
It's almost impossible. I mean, I know a lot of young bands, like we talk all the time about this all-female group Plush that I'm friendly with, Mariah the singer. And I mean, they went out last year. I mean, as a brand new band, they got an incredible amount of tours. They toured with Alice in Chains. They toured with Wolfie Van Halen. They toured with Slash. They toured with Seven Dust. I mean, back to back to back to back to back. This young band, very young band. And that's when you hear that, that's fucking amazing.
Right.
And yet when you go to look at their Spotify numbers, it's 6,000, 7,000 plays a song. And it's like, and this is after playing probably in front of 100,000 people with mainstream bands. It's just, we're in such a weird time where the old people have decided that they're done growing, and the new people are more looking for 30-second clips on TikTok.
Well, Chris, hold on a second right there, because what was really interesting before, Brandon and I connected on social media, he was appearing in my feeds all the time, because like Facebook has the shorts and the reels and stuff, and no kidding, Brandon was showing up, and it says how many views are on there, and it would be like 500,000 views, 1.1 million views, and it's like him just doing a little noodling on guitar, like showing you how to play just a quick snippet of a famous song, and he just gets up in the camera, he's like, "What I do?" And it's pretty phenomenal, because I mean, Chris and I are a little jealous because we feel like we've been shadow banned with our show. You know what I mean? Like, in fact, if you could believe this, today I was looking for the link to our show on YouTube, and obviously I was one of the subscribers. I was kicked off as a subscriber. Like, who did that? It's our show. I had to like resubscribe to our show, so I wouldn't even believe the numbers you see on Chris Aiken Presents. We're also on the CMS network, which has thousands of subscribers, fortunately, and I was
Amazon
still
and whatnot, but
we're in other places just in case they're messing with us. But tell me how you achieved getting. Is it because what you do is just music and it's instructional, so they push it more, or like how does it work?
Man, a not so long-winded answer, because I am pretty obsessive about things that I want to do in life, and this is one thing I've been heavily obsessive about, is trying to build social media for various purposes. And I think it comes down to just what's trending. I don't think it's about how good someone is, although that can play a part in capturing people's attention. I think it's more about what people are giving away for free, unfortunately. And maybe this actually all ties into why original music has very little value now. I think everyone's looking for that quick sort of free content. So teaching and education on there is a form of that. And then, maybe me nailing a Van Halen solo, because Van Halen's Van Halen. That's also, probably like a big aspect. But the moment I post some of my own stuff, believe me, it doesn't do as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know, 6 months ago or so, I had Nick Nocturnal, who I'm going to guess you're probably familiar with as a guitar player. Maybe not, but he's kind of the same as you social media wise, except he focuses only on new metal and new metal guitar. And he has, like, same as you, every time he puts out a video, he's reaching half a country's worth of people. He's reaching, 1.3 million, 5 million, huge numbers. And I asked him at one point, and I mean, he's an amazing one of the things that he does is he'll get some new metal band will put out a new song, and he'll immediately that day he'll put out, well, here's how you play it. He's one of those guys that could just look at it and go, okay, then boom, and he'll just do it. He'll put out a short or a little short 3-minute video of it. Crazy amount of numbers. So I asked him at one point, I was like, dude, why don't you do a band? And he's like, why would I do a band? He can reach more people and have more impact sharing what his skill is without all of the hassle of getting together with guys, getting rehearsal spaces, slugging it out for first 50 people, then 100, then 200 for 5 years. He could do it all in the instant. Are you kind of feeling some of that yourself?
Well, I mean, I recognize that's a possibility. I've built a pretty sound teaching business online from that. And that I make more money just between all of us teaching than I do in any band that I'm in. And, I see social media as a vehicle to do that, but I don't like, that's not what fulfills me, is the numbers on social media. I would rather be, out there like Eric and everyone playing in these bands that I love and playing the music live. I'm even willing to take less pay for some of that to go do it, because that's what fulfills
for the adventure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more old school like that. Even though my numbers here and there might say otherwise, or maybe people would see something else. No, I'm into the old school method, and I'd much rather be out there playing and going about it that way. But
You're doing it right, in my opinion. I mean, I was always considered for many years as just being the hired gun in Piercy's band, and technically I still am. If a promoter hires Stephen Piercy, I don't have anything to do with that contract on there. I had a lot to do with his solo records, and it reflects in the writing credits. But it's same thing. It's a hired gun gig, and through my years of hanging in there, my fee rose up over time. But I mean, this is over a 20-year period, and you're already, on your way working with these bands that are going to other countries and probably getting paid pretty well to do it. They can afford to pay you a fair salary. So you are out doing it. And the longer you're out there, the more people get used to seeing you. And then when your name comes up for a gig with a national artist, be like, Brandon Paul. Oh yeah, Brandon. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
He has his shit together. He's dependable. He's been out with these bands we see for years. He's a safe bet.
And not only that, but let's be real honest about it. What is the first thing these guys do look for now? They go to the social media.
Right.
And they'll see, 1 million followers or 500,000 followers or whatnot. They'll be like, this guy's going to add value to my band. I mean, honestly, you, Brandon Paul, you have more followers than a lot of national bands that we can name.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, I thank you, Eric, for that great advice, by the way. That was really sound what you said. I'm definitely going to think more about that. That means a lot. I don't know, when it comes to the follower thing, like I said earlier, a lot of it is if you focus on what's trending, I think, and kind of move along in that realm, you could probably simply do the same. Again, unfortunately, I don't think the predominant factor of success in a follower ratio is based on how good you are per se, or like how long you know what I mean? I think it's more or less like just what's happening right then and there. Like when Reels came out, nobody wanted to post Reels, but the ones who did got all the views and got ahead of the curve because TikTok is competing with Instagram. So
that's right.
The short form content and great lighting, these things actually matter more than how well you play the Van Halen solo. I mean, that's just kind of icing on the cake,
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. And I'm a very failed drummer back in the day. I was not good at it. I did it. I played drums, but I sucked, and I know it, and that's why I don't play an instrument anymore, because I did not have that skill. That being said, I get fed on YouTube all the time, the shorts, drummer after drummer after drummer after drummer, young drummers, very young, 18, 19, 20, 15, that are doing it, which to me is fantastic, because
Chris likes the girl ones. Yeah,
I do like the
on the
girl
last
ones a
week
lot.
you brought on. She was okay, but she dropped her stick like at the end of the
I don't care.
Okay.
I do like the girl drummers, but my point though is that I feel like what it's creating is in large part not necessarily great for the music business, because all of these drummers, they're just playing other people's stuff. I get a ton of Limp Bizkit. For some reason, Limp Bizkit seems to be what all the 20-year-olds use as their drumming chop for their, I guess, because it's funky and it's fun and they can twirl their sticks and whatnot. So, I see that constantly, but I don't see these drummers growing into their own music. I don't get a ton of guitar ones. So you do guitar ones. What are you seeing? Are you seeing that people are not being as creative, or do you think that's just what they're putting on YouTube or Reels, and they actually are creative away from it?
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think you nailed it. Most people, I'd say 80 to 90% of the content creators are definitely recycling a lot of stuff, and it's more or less just that. And a lot of the guys, the Instagram guitar players that have 1 million followers, or the girls that have 500,000 followers playing some of these solos wrong, they're not even in any bands, and they're not going to get a call more than likely from me or Eric or somebody to sub or do some, they're not going to be referred. But I do think it is bad ultimately for, I don't want to say the music business because that's very general, but I do think it goes along in that discussion of diminishing the value of what some of these other aspects are, which, maybe hard work on the instrument, creation, originality. And I'm not talking about, because there are people on Instagram or on social media that, they have their own creative ways of catching you on Instagram. I've been seeing it where they'll like run into the camera from the side, and then they'll have like the piece of paper up that has the lettering on it. Like, I'm not saying that level of creativity. I'm talking about what you're talking about, where you sit and you really go in the trenches and you dig and you find that song and that lyric, or you go and you shed the guitar and you try to perfect that D Martini solo, because when you go play that live that you got the juice behind your fingers.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know that most of these people on Instagram are thinking like that at all.
Right. Right on, man.
Well, they also have to, connect with you, with your face, which you have a great face. I know you have a lot of female fans. You're kind of like a young Don Johnson. I mean, that doesn't hurt. We got Crockett over here.
I've heard a young Peter North. I've heard a few things. So.
Peter, just from the waist down.
Nice. Well, Brandon, I actually want to go back. You're what? You're in your early 30s, correct?
Yes.
I was surprised to hear that. I thought you were even younger than that. So you're holding up well. I could tell you don't partake in the hard drugs. That's good.
No, I've never been into any of that, man. I'll have a drink every now and then just to socialize, but I try to stay focused.
Way to go. Way to go.
Now, you're right in the age group that I want to talk about. I have sworn for years that the biggest detriment to music creativity was Guitar Hero. I just think that I think now, 20 years later, we're paying for it because there's not a lot of Brandon Pauls out there that can play. And I think it's in very large part because at the age that I'm 54, and when I was 17, 18, 15, we picked up a guitar, we picked up a drum set, or we picked up a bass or whatever and learned. None of these kids that are your age, or not none, but most of them did not. They picked up a plastic guitar with 4 colored buttons on it and thought they were playing Megadeth's Rust in Peace or whatever.
Because they could annoying as hell. I'd see those bastards in the department store. They would actually have a crowd of people around them, just amazed by them. Them playing the stupid 4 keys on there.
But I think it hurt us because now you don't have as many players. So we've lost a lot of creative minds that may have potentially created some good music. And I think, and again, tell me if you think any of this is crazy, but I think the reason rock went out of style was because we didn't raise the next generation to be creating and playing and learning. I mean, if you look at everything that's going on now, rock's not on the radio anymore. Right. When you see tour stuff, half the bands are playing to tracks. They're not really playing. They're guitar heroing. I think you're really seeing the kind of culmination
the repercussions. The repercussions of dumbing down guitar to 4 colored buttons.
Well, and not only guitar. I mean, we're saying Guitar Hero, but there was also Rock Band that was the subsequent Guitar Hero that had the drum kit, and you didn't have to learn how to play.
Piece of shit.
But you didn't have to learn how to play drums either. You just had to go red drum, blue drum, green drum.
You had to be a midget to play it. What do you even do with that thing? It was like Stonehenge and Spinal Tap.
But again, I just go to the point, where is all the creativity now? Where is this generation's Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton, John Bonham?
Yeah. Well,
where's the next Eric Ferentinos? We're looking for him.
Well, I'm halfway there.
He's got the guitar, man. Yeah,
and I don't know about you, but I put a German Floyd on it.
You
so,
did. I
yeah.
was going to ask you about that real quick. So, did you have to do any further augmentations to the body of the guitar to slap that in, or was it just a matter of buying it and putting it right in?
That's exactly it. I had to throw a spring, I think, an extra spring in the back just for some looser tension because I like the bar to be.
I have 3 springs on there.
Oh, okay.
Johnny Monaco had pointed out to me too. He told me to try just putting them straight instead of how most people do a triangle. You know, they'll take like one going up the middle spring and then the other 2 springs kind of to form a triangle going down is how they set up most of the Floyd guitars. But he does it straight away. And then I looked at Eddie Van Halen and he also used to have it straight too. If you look at a picture,
he did, yeah. Yeah, mine are in the triangle fashion on that guitar. So
right, because you're in the Illuminati.
Basically.
That's right. Well, Brandon, we've kind of touched on it, but we haven't really dug into it. Talk about your teaching operation. And I know a little bit about this because I set up. I built John Levin teaches guitar from Dokken, and I built that site for him. Like he and I worked for 6 months and built it, and we worked tirelessly on recording all his riffs and putting them into different levels. I mean, we spent a lot of time. So I know sort of how it works, but for you, explain how your guitar teaching works and who you basically teach. And if people wanted to learn to play guitar, young or old, what they would do to hire you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd love to. And John Levin, he's a great friend of mine. I actually created his Facebook fan page.
Okay.
Very simple. You did much more intricate work, but so yeah, John's great, man. I miss the guy. I haven't talked to him in a while. I didn't get a chance to answer your other question about Rock Band and all that.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You nailed it, man. Both of you guys. Like, I don't really know where any of it's going either. It's been very frustrating for me too, because I'm also, like you said, I'm kind of in this generation and I don't identify as well with a lot of folks my age or a few
You're an
years
old
younger.
soul, Brandon.
I do feel that I am, and it's been kind of tricky to fit in and very isolated feeling in a way. But I do think, like, this stuff has happened a lot in life where, I mean, we had Rock Band and then, Guitar Hero and other things in life where that's happened too, where it's like Napster. It was kind of the beginning of the end with streaming music and Spotify and stuff. So I'm not really sure where it's going. I agree with both of you on that. And I do think it's kind of sad in that sense, not to end that on a negative note, but just the reality. Yeah.
You got to roll with the changes, and you're doing a good job. Like I'm just, this being Chris's co-host kind of fell into my lap from doing a few interviews, but I remember having anxiety just being a phone in on the Classic Metal Show, let alone showing my face, being an old timer. I'm not used to like streaming like the young people are today. They've been doing this the whole time with their selfies, where I was already in my 40s by the time that technology came out, and I was like, oh, I don't want to show my face, and now I had to overcome a lot just to be on this show, but you're like way ahead of the game as far as having yourself out there. And that's going to be a huge difference, where I don't think that they're all going to put in the focus that you have into having all your socials on point and everything you put into your teaching and videos out there.
Sure.
I appreciate that. And I do think, on a side note too, with that whole Guitar Hero thing that we're talking about, I will say that I do think there are some guys that are pushing the boundaries of guitar. Like, if you look at the Polyphia guys, they're kind of in that zone where it's hyper technical metal, and it may not be a lot of our taste. It's not particularly my taste, but it's definitely, I can respect how they're taking the shredder thing to a whole new level of like hyper chops. And so I do think there is some evolution that's naturally been had in that regard. But as far as mainstream goes, you're 100% right. I don't know when that'll come back, or the next Jimmy Page.
Sure. There may not be one. There may not be one.
I don't know if there will. I mean, and if it does, it'll come back in a weird way. I mean, the Greta Van Fleet example.
Thank you. I was just going to say that. I didn't want to interrupt, but I mean, come on, that kid is the best Jimmy Page tone-wise player I've ever heard, and he's super young.
Well, I mean, the whole band is very regurgitated Zeppelin style, and that's, you know, I can't speak on it. I don't have all their records, so I don't want to like just, you know, classify them. But what I do hear and what I've seen seems to be like pretty much in the Zeppelin realm.
Sure.
Yeah.
And there's bands, more from them. Well, there's bands that are like that. And to be honest, and I love them. You know, Greta Van Fleet, love them. Dirty Honey is one of my absolute favorite bands. I love them.
They're great.
Yeah.
You know, Joyous Wolf, another band, great band. And so what I'm about to say is not to be insulting to them, because I really, really am a fan of them. The problem is, again, going back to the creativity, they're playing old style music, which is going to play well to a 54-year-old guy. It's not going to play well to a 19-year-old kid that's like, that's my dad's music. You know, they don't hear.
What about The Weeknd though? Like I just mentioned that, you know, The Weeknd's concert specials have been on TV a lot, Hulu, these places. Now his music is very 80s. You know, it's got down to the cheesy drum machine from, you know, it's almost got like a Take on Me, aha,
like a new wave kind of a sound.
Right, new wave, but it's cyclical in the sense that here they're going back 40 years, like, and Brandon made mention of this earlier, when things are just happen to be hot right now. And when you go back, right now, this sort of, you know, post-punk new wave era is kind of hot again from the early 80s. And so all of a sudden anybody sounding like that or having the fashion like that's getting pushed, and the kids like it. It doesn't take much to turn kids onto something.
I don't know. I still think though that's all gimmick, and it's not going to make a movement. I mean, you can go back 20 years to Puff Daddy with Jimmy Page. You can go to the Super Bowl 3 weeks ago or whenever the Super Bowl was with Nuno Betancourt playing for Rihanna. You know, I mean, is Nuno Betancourt's music going to become huge again for the 19-year-old kids? No. It's a gimmick that works for Rihanna, but if Rihanna did all 80s metal sounding guitar licks in her music, she would fall.
Depending. Yeah. I mean, you might be right. I don't know. I mean, it's possible, you know, they could make it trendy. They could
maybe,
turn people on. Maybe. I mean,
it's never happened.
I thought Demi Lovato was going to go that direction, and then she got Nita Strauss from Alice Cooper's band in there on guitar. That was kind of short-lived, but she was going to throw down some guitar stuff in her pop music. I was actually like interested to see where she was going to go with that, because it wasn't bad or anything. And then all of a sudden she just disappeared, and now
Nita's your back next gig, Brandon. You could go and join Demi Lovato. There's an opening.
Yeah, look, man, I'm open to anything, honestly. I mean, you know,
you have to be non-binary though, so you can't be Brandon the
true.
Man.
I don't know if I can.
No, I'm kidding.
Eric's got me figured out. There was something a while ago too, not to digress on that, but I'll piggyback on what you're saying, is that Metallica Lady Gaga collaboration.
Right. Yeah.
That was cool. Like I could see, and she's always had like metal guitar.
Oh yeah, she's got that.
What about, you know, I think it'd be cool. I thought of doing this myself, like interjecting guitar into these tracks that don't have it. Doing videos like that where you're actually like, you know what, F this, man. This could have guitar. Check it out. And you actually like make the guitar work in it. Like I've thought of doing some stuff like that. Maybe
now that would have some social media possibilities there.
If you go look at Mateus Asado, he's done a lot of that. He's done it in more of like a not a pop fashion, but a clean channel. He has some distorted ripping shit too. He's a virtuoso, but he's definitely taken like hot songs, and then he's like played the melody at the same time and added like beautiful licks, double stops, and all kinds of stuff. So you should check him out. He's good at doing that. Yeah,
definitely. Well, dude, let me swing it back to, I know we asked the question 10 minutes ago, but let's swing it back to your teaching, because that's, you know, certainly we want to promote that.
Thank you.
Start with who are the people that are doing it? Is it kids? Is it old guys? Is it a little of everything? Who comes to you to learn to play guitar?
Yeah, the simple answer is everybody. The long-winded answer is that I've been teaching, since I was 20, 21. I've taught at music schools, elementary schools. I've done the K-12 thing. I taught at School of Rock for years, the one in West Los Angeles. I've created tons of programs, and I've been doing private lessons since then. I used to drive to students, and they'd come to my studio. Now everything is online and strictly through Skype. And I would say now it's definitely, the demographic is anywhere from 20 years old to, I don't know, 70 or whatever. But it's a personal choice that I typically don't teach anyone younger than maybe like 15 years old. I mean, if I see something there and I'm really into them and I think that they have the potential and their focus is there, I would consider someone a lot younger. But my demographic right now is certainly, I'd say, from like, to be safe, 18 years old and 300.
Okay.
I think older guys. I remember teaching for like a 5 or 6 year period. This was before you were able to do Zoom or anything like that. You had to actually go to their house, or whatever. Or they come to your place. But it seemed like the younger kids, you could keep going longer, and they
Definitely.
had hope. To where older people might try it for like a lesson or two, but then they just realize they give up way quicker.
First blister, they're out.
Yeah, they're like, oh, this is going to be hard, isn't it?
Yeah, well, and that, I'd say on top of that too, what I noticed is like, and this is a big reason I don't teach younger kids as much anymore. I found that it was more babysitting. Like kids, parents would drop their kids off at School of Rock, or like, that was that hour of time where the parents could go do errands or do whatever they wanted.
Have a drink.
Yeah, exactly. I found that more than anything with the younger kids.
15 was a good age. Like the students I had that were around 15 had, at least they were grown into the guitar physically enough at that point, and their brain was developed enough to where you could actually show them some of this stuff. Because I've had smaller, younger people that it's like kind of ridiculous to think that they're going to pull off anything of a classic rock variety at that beginning stage. Their fingers just aren't even big enough yet. But 15 was like a sweet spot probably for keeping a student. Some I had for probably 3 to 5 years.
Right.
And then they move on when it came time to go to college or whatever. It was cool though.
Yeah.
Well, Brandon, for you, if somebody wanted to hire you, what is is there an entry level thought that they should already be at? Should they already know basic chords, or could they have just come home from Guitar Center with their first ever guitar and then you would teach them? I mean, where is the start point that you're comfortable with, or that you try to have people with when you take on a student?
I'd say honestly, from ground zero, they don't even have to have a guitar. If somebody reached out, which I've had many times, and
you're giving air guitar lessons, Brandon?
Yeah, that's where it starts. Exactly. We basically just close our eyes and picture ourselves playing.
What about if they show up with the Guitar Hero guitar? Are you ready to teach them?
I'll take
some adult in a diaper, some grown man in a diaper and a Guitar Hero guitar. You're like, hey, dude, what's up?
Yeah, that's not going to happen. The good thing is I make sure in my policy they send the money first. So if I see that,
well, then you have to see what he's got to show you.
Nice.
No, but they can be from any situation. I teach beginners, intermediate, advanced players.
Sure.
Most of my students seem to be in the intermediate realm.
Okay.
But it could be really from any stage.
So for those students that are at the intermediate level, do they, and I come to you with this question as a straight up novice, so you can both laugh at me if you want to, but do they come into it with something specific that they don't know how to do? Like they're not good at arpeggios or something, or do they just see that could get better or feel like they could get better. So they hire you hoping you can tap into what's missing and show them what's missing.
Yeah. I mean, typically people, they'll come in with probably like a rigid idea of what they want. They think, oh, I see you doing those tapping things, and I know once I get that, I'll be great. And it's like, I'm kind of the reality check guy where I'm like, there's a lot of elements to your game we can focus on, like your rhythm and your swing. We got to get the shuffle, or et cetera, et cetera. And well, lo and behold, that'll translate to awesome lead guitar playing. But yeah, I mean, they'll come in with an idea like that, usually like, hey, I see you doing this. I want to do that. I want to do that. And then I kind of introduce them to other things that they can be better at. And they, hopefully they have the humility and they're open-minded to kind of learning all of it.
Right on. Now, where should we tell people to go if they want guitar lessons? Because it is all online.
Well, they can reach out to Eric first and foremost. And Eric will teach them.
No. Send them your way, please.
Through email, Instagram, anything, Facebook, anywhere. You can just find me at Brandon Paul Official. I have, YouTube stuff. I have Instagram, Facebook. Everything is the same all across all my channels.
He's ever present on all the social mediums.
That's right.
Yeah. And I do have an online guitar school as well, where you can learn at your own pace. And that's got, hundreds and hundreds of ultra 4K shot videos where I'm breaking everything down into detail. A lot of basically what I teach in private lessons. And that's good for people that want to learn at their own pace. There's a ton of different genres. There's rock, there's blues, there's country, there's pop, there's some shred stuff, and much more on there. That's at Brandon Paul Guitar Alliance.
It's the next best thing to having Brandon Paul in your bedroom.
That's right.
Basically, yes.
Nice.
Exactly.
Excellent. Well, Brandon, man, it's definitely been great catching up with you, man. And I definitely encourage people to go over and check out what you're doing. And we are going to check out the video for Justified here in a second to wrap the show up. Before we do that, though, I'm going to make a quick show announcement for next week's show. We are going to have it's 80s galore next week on the show, as we will have Kip Winger from Winger will be here talking about their new song and their new album 7. And speaking of guitar players, Frank Hannon from Tesla will be here as well to talk about
nice.
Their tour. So lots of good 80s featured music next week. And Brandon, I'll tell you what, why don't we do this to wrap this one up? Why don't you tell us about this video for Justified and this song to wrap things up?
Absolutely. And Frank, by the way, is one of my best friends, man. He's one of the nicest
awesome
guys I've ever met in my life.
He's
Love
great.
him. So Justified was the first single that I put out vocally. And so bear with that. High and Dry is a lot better vocally.
You sound great, dude. Your voice is great.
Thanks,
it's like
man.
Styx meets Alice in Chains or something.
It's very Alice in Chainsy. That was unintentional. I think my voice just kind of sits somewhere in that pocket. I appreciate that. So Justified, it's a song that I wrote about basically taking the fall for things you didn't do. And in the music video, it shows everyone on a subway, and it's got a lot of different people in there. You have the working man in the business suit. You have people that, just all walks of life. And there's a lot of judgment being passed, along with, again, kind of taking the brunt of something you didn't do. Hence the chorus, Justified and whatnot. So when you listen to it and watch it, if you can think in those terms. But yeah, that's one of the songs I put out. I hope everyone likes it. And thank you so much for playing it, Chris.
Absolutely. Well, let's check it out. This is Justified. And for everybody watching, thanks for watching Chris Aker Presents as always. And we will see you guys next Monday. See ya.
See ya.
Justified inside your mind.